How are
Hey,
you?
Josh, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. And it's such a
Good.
pleasure to be able to speak to you again today because long time fan of your work, as I think you know, and I loved your roles in this movie, particularly as Amazo. And we meet him, he's laying waste to the Justice League, and then he develops a conscience in that fight. So what was that emotional awakening, so to speak, like for you to explore?
In moments like that, that's such a good question. Um, especially when it's you have characters with questionable motives and things going on, and to find a conscience, to find any kind of we how do I put this? Sometimes characters, whether it's the good guy or the bad guy, they have in a show, they have one direction and that's the one they're going on. And then you defeat them and the movie's over. To see this crisis of conscience midway through, um, kind of questioning, like, is this what we should be doing? I just think it gives a depth to character. Again, whether it's on the good side or the bad, it gives a depth of character that you don't normally see, and that again goes back to just great writing. Such an interesting uh, thought to play. There's so much. It stays away from the cliche. It stays away from anything kind of contrived. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. You don't see it coming. And I think that's something that makes me, there's two things that attract me when I'm to something that I'm watching as a viewer. It's a character who um, is necessarily, is open to change, and characters that excuse me, and like a story that's open to like taking me a place that, oh, I did not expect that, and characters that I care about. I don't always have to like them, but I care about them. So I think uh, Amazo, and by the way, I went back and forth. Is it Amazo? Amazo.
Yeah.
And Amazo it just makes me think of, Jeff Bezos. I'm like, Amazo? Does he work for Amazon? I don't. No, he does not, by the way. Just that spoiler alert. No, but it's just, I think it's one of those things where um, just such an interesting way, it's unlike anything I've ever kind of really come across and been able to play. So I got to give the writer a big nod for that one. I think that was a really interesting way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you alluded to, this could have really been a two-dimensional bad guy who just comes in and he fights the
Mhm.
Justice League. But later in the movie, he almost becomes, well, he does become an ally and a friend to the Flash, and there's almost maybe a little bit of a bromance going on. So that dynamic, that must be a fun one to jump into as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, well, first of all, I got to be honest with you. It's hard to keep track sometimes of the different, as I had three characters in this, and so it's like, well, Green Lantern was one way, and the homeless man who you're probably familiar with, um, and Amazo. By the way, thank you. I seriously, up till now, I really never wasn't sure how to say my own name, but
Hope I'm saying it right.
yeah. Well, maybe not. Who cares? You know what? You liked what he's all about. Yeah, I know. I think, and of course the Flash is such an integral part of this. Is he's I mean, it's the Flash. I mean, and I think for him to join up and to like you said, become an ally. Uh, yeah, it's kind of when you say bromance, I just want to think of Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds. Just how their bromance got them over to Wrexham, and kind of that's them. So it's interesting. So yeah, I'm actually really curious to see how everybody else will take to that part of the story. Um, hope they like it as much as I do and as you do. So let's go.
Yeah.
We're there.
Yeah, well, as a fan, for sure, I had a great time with it. And you mentioned Hal Jordan. I know this is a relatively small role in this particular film as that Green Lantern.
Yeah.
You've obviously played him before, but what
Yeah.
about that character did you really enjoy delving into? Because I feel like your voice for him perfectly suited for the kind of character that is.
Yeah, and again, yeah, I know it's not he's got a huge presence, but I just tell people, anytime you get to play a superhero like this, in any way, it's, he's kind of a off on his own and agrees to come back, and well, not come back, but he agrees to, become part of that. I was talking earlier about the idea that I think being a superhero, in that sense, can be a very lonely thing to be, because you're different, you're special, you're one of a kind, not one of a kind, but one of a very rare. So when you find your community, your group of people, I think there's a happiness that they could probably find. I said earlier to someone, I was always a big Justice League, growing up, fan, and watched it on Saturday morning cartoons, and I always remember thinking the Hall of Justice. But meanwhile, back at the Hall of Justice, it was that that great Ted Knight booming voice, and I was like, wow, that's like their, I'm probably like 6, 7 years old. I'm going, it's like their clubhouse, and we used to play Super Friends in my backyard, and I think I had the underoos for like Superman most of the time, and my friend had Batman, and we'd run, you'd run around, and then, kids in the backyard on a cold New England day in your underwear. I don't know what the neighbors thought. We did have to move abruptly, but no. But we would do it, and Mike, and we had a tree house, and that was, when we played that game, that was the Hall of Justice, and pretended to have the computers telling us what, and it was. So I think there's getting Hal Jordan back, in good graces and part of the team is always a good thing.
Yeah, well, two fantastic roles in this movie, and another favorite role of mine that you've been in, obviously Nathan Drake, Uncharted. And the last time we spoke for Avengers, you were still waiting on that call for the cameo in the movie from Sony. Obviously, that did happen, which I was pleased to see. So, but for you, was that a passing of the torch to Tom, or are you still hoping to come back maybe for another game if Naughty Dog head down that route?
Well, I think I'd always come back. I wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to pass the torch to somebody else for the mocap suit. I think that would be, it'd be insane to do that. And it's too much fun. I don't know if there are any plans for that though. I think Tom did a great job with the film. And I love the fact that they decided to explore where was Nathan Drake in his 20s. Speaking with producers, they said, we have no interest in, the games are movies in themselves, and why we don't want to try to do a one-to-one adaptation in a certain way of those, but where was he in his 20s? And you get arguably one of the biggest box office stars in the world in Tom Holland, right there up there with him, Mark Wahlberg. They're both into it. They both are professionals, and it was fun. I got to. And we actually, when we did the scene, there was originally an idea where a waiter's bringing me a drink, and as I go to grab the drink, Tom grabs it, and I'm like, "Hey, that's mine." And he's like, "Don't worry, I'll take good care of it." And we did it a couple of times, and then I looked and I said, "I don't think this looks very good for Tom," and because it looks like he was taking it. No, I wasn't passing the torch. So then I think we did a couple takes where I try to give him the, I have the drink. I'm like, "Hey, you look thirsty, kid," something like that. And then we got rid of the drink, and it just ended up being what it was. So, but yeah, it was great fun. Of course, I'd come back for a fifth game if that was possible. But I got a lot of other things in the works right now, including, we have a couple more movies here after this. So, exciting stuff.
Yeah, just one final question for you. I've read that you're going to be Superman in the new Suicide Squad game, another role I know you've done a couple of times in the past. So what's it meant for you to return as the Man of Steel, and obviously to share that game with the late Kevin Conroy as Batman?
Suicide Squad. We did, I was able to do Superman and Penguin back. So one of my longtime collaborations with Warner Brothers and Rocksteady, one of my favorites. Again, anytime you get asked to be Superman, you jump at it. I remember when we did Young Justice, They had originally, cast as Superboy, and the first day of recording, Greg Weisman came up and he said, "Hey, we realized Superboy is a clone of Superman." So he actually said these words: "Would you mind playing Superman in the show as well?" Like, what am I going to say? No, I don't want to do that. Yeah. So, Superboy was just youthful, kind of young, energetic kind of voice. And Superman is just me yelling, just when I have to get, tell my dogs to stop barking. And just, it's just that more formal, Clark Kent kind of deal. Yeah, it was, it's always great fun, to play that. There's some really, again, I go back to this a lot. It all goes back to good writing, and there's some really cool scenes in that as well that were fun to play as Superman. So hope people enjoy that.
Awesome. Well, I cannot wait for that one. Cannot wait
Yeah.
for people to see this movie, because I had a great time. And Nolan, we got to wrap, but lovely to speak to you again. So thank you so much for taking
Great
the
to
time.
speak to you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.